Hello everyone, my name's Phil from Framon Manufacturing, and today I'm going to give you a little once-over of some software and key machines that Wurth handles, and just going to give you some basics about key codes, duplicating keys, making keys, and some different types of keys. This video is going to give you some basic information on the different types of automotive keys that are being used today. I want to go over, we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between an edge cut or a traditional key and a high security, what everyone calls either a high security or a laser cut key, which is more prevalent today with different automobiles. Most of the manufacturers for years used what we call the traditional edge cut key. This is a Toyota key, and this is similar to your house key. We call it an edge cut key because the key is cut along the edge. Traditional key duplication machines and code cutting machines would make this type of key. This lasted into the 80s and 90s. Mazda and Nissan still use this type of key, but most of the other manufacturers have gone on to what we call a high security or a laser key. So the laser keys, Honda was one of the first ones to start using it almost exclusively on their entire line. They started in the late 90s, early 2000s with this type of key, and this is still the same key that they use today. The key is cut using a milling type machine, and it is cut around the edge of the key. Got a little cross shape there on the end of the key. All these keys are convenience keys. They're cut the same way on both sides of the key, meaning this side of the key and this side of the key have the same cuts, which means you can put it in either way and the key will operate in the lock. Different cuts on both edges of the key, so there's one pattern here and one pattern here, and of course that's the same left and right patterns match on either side of the key. So that's your traditional Honda key. This is an internal track key for General Motors. They use this style key on almost all of their vehicles today. Here's a Lexus key. Lexus and Toyota are basically the same company. Another internal track type key. Some terminology we're going to use in our videos relates to the way that a key is gauged in the key machine. This Lexus key, if you look along the edge, completely straight, there's no what we call a shoulder. This is what we would call a tip stop key. So the gauge point on this key is the very end of the key. We're going to put this key in a machine all the way up to a fixed stop. We're going to stop it right at the tip of the key and gauge it from that point. Our General Motors key is the same way. The entire shaft of the key is straight. There's no shoulder whatsoever. If we look at a Fiat key, this is also used on a lot of Jeep Renegades and other Jeep vehicles now, and slowly making its way into the Chrysler line. This has a 90-degree shoulder at the head of the key. And so this is our fixed stop on the key. So when we put this key into the machine, we're going to stop it at the shoulder. And this is an Isuzu key. This has a fixed shoulder as well, and got a 90-degree shoulder right here, and this is our gauge point. So when we have a shoulder, we are typically going to use it as our gauge point. When there's no shoulder, we're going to tip stop the key. Generic code is our key code program. So before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about the difference between duplicating a key and code cutting a key. So if someone brings a key into a dealership and just needs a copy made, we call that a duplicate. So they will typically put this in a machine and make a copy using a guide and a cutting wheel, and it will just make an exact duplicate of that key. Again, just using a duplicating function or a true duplicating machine. So duplicating, we're just making a copy of a key. When a customer loses all their keys, a dealership typically has the ability to look up a key code, or if you happen to have your original set of keys, there's typically a code tag that goes along with your original set of keys. So this is a Isuzu truck, and if you look on that tag, it shows 80376. So we're going to use that in our example here. And if someone lost all their keys, the first step would be to find this code number. And again, most of the time a dealership can look this up by VIN number. We would go in here to code number. We would type in 80376. You know, this is a vehicle. And there's different ways in the program to get to this. I'm just using this as our first sample. So this is we have an Isuzu truck listing. We know we're using an Isuzu truck. And this is going to show us key blank reference and what the actual cuts on that key are. Traditionally, a 1 cut is shallow. If you look down here at the depths, a 1 cut is 315 thousandths, a 4 cut is 241, which means this is a shallow cut and this is a deeper cut. Typically, the lower a number is, the higher the cut or the shallower, and the bigger the number is a deeper cut. So if you look at the pattern compared to what's on the screen here, that shows you what the program has determined are the right cuts on the key. And if you look, the profile here roughly matches the profile on the screen. And again, the cuts on this key starting at the head of the key, if you look at the screen up here, we have 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 3, 1, 3, 2. So that shows us what the cuts are on the key, and depending on which key machine we are using, we would take that information and either transmit it electronically to a code machine or go to our manual machine and cut it based on that information. We'll cover all the different ways to originate this key on different machines in another video. Next, I want to go over our code program. We call it generic code. I believe Wurth calls it auto code. There are a lot of buttons here on the main menu, not all of which a automotive dealership would use. Typically, an automotive dealership is going to use the code number button, the vehicle button, the Sidewinder code button, probably the application setup button just to set the machine up or the software up correctly for your key machine. There's also some cycle information in here, boat and airplane, depending on who you're selling a key machine to, that may come in handy. One thing I will say is in the last 10 years, fewer manufacturers are giving out their code information, so it's more difficult for us to find out what the key cuts are based on a code. Subaru has not given out any of their information in years. We get most of the codes one at a time from people sending information in to us. So let's start with the first step in our program when we would first install it, and we would go to application setup. So depending on what machine type you have, we would probably set our code search for vehicle locks because most of the time we're going to be dealing with vehicles. Your key blank type, this is the key blank numbering system that you're going to use. If your dealership uses all original, you can go down to original. We do not have every manufacturer's key blank part number in our system. Typically, I would assume you would be selling either StratTech or Ilco to your customer. So we'll stick with Ilco. The machine type, I have this one set up for a Laser Key Products Elite machine. Some of the other choices that you might use if you are using our 2001 machine, the Framon 2001 machine, or what it might be called an auto code, you would have this set up for Framon Automatic. If you're using a DC300, that would be a Framon manual code machine. We've also got the Laser Key Products Extreme and the Elite. There are other key machines in here, but the machines that I just mentioned are those that Wurth carries from our line. So we will leave this on Elite for the moment. So this is for cutting regular edge type keys, the machine type. HS machine type is your high security machine, and we will also leave that as an Elite. Some people might have one machine for code cutting edge cut keys and another machine for code cutting high security keys, or the laser cut keys that we described earlier. Most vehicle cut types are going to be what we call a laser cut, and that just means on a traditional edge cut key that when the cutter comes in, instead of going in and out and moving over and going in and out, it's going to go straight across and smooth out all these ridges on the key. The rest of the information is just going to be left as it is, and we'll hit save. Next step would be we would like to see our customers use the vehicle section. That is the most accurate way to know that you're putting in the right information. So we will go into the vehicle section. And let's stick with our sample key. That's an Isuzu. And so we'll go to make is going to be Isuzu. And this is an N-series truck. And so we've got some different year ranges here and different code series. So in about 2008, Isuzu started using this newer style key. So we will pick that. You'll see two different code series here for that. 0000 to 0999, and then the same series actually with an 8 in front of it. Isuzu dealers will probably only in their computer see 4 digits. The actual code series has 5 digits, but as you can see, they all start with an 8. So either one of these is going to get the same results as long as you put it in the right format. So our key code tag that we have shows 80376. So we'll go down to this series and we will click on code to cuts, which means we want to put in a code number. The 80 is already in place because the first 2 digits of every key in that code series are always the same, and we're just going to put in 376. Click OK. And this is going to bring us up to, again, the picture of our key. It's going to show us some different key blank numbers for an Elite machine, if that's what we have it hooked up to. We want to use the shoulder stop. Again, we talked about this key having a shoulder on it, so we would stop this key based on the shoulder, and it's going to go in jaw side A according to this picture. If we were to cut this key right now, we would just basically load our key and click cut key, and we would cut both sides of that key, and you would have a code cut key. We can also put one of these keys in the machine, and it will actually trace the profile and determine what these keys are and what the code number is. So we'll go back to our main menu here. The code number button can also be used. So if you click on that, we can enter in 80376, a little bit different way to get to the same information. Click on search, and we've got an Isuzu truck here, and that's going to bring us back to the same information we just looked at. The problem with this is we can run into a little snag. So we know this isn't a Lexus, obviously, and we know it's not a Peugeot. But we can also enter in a code for General Motors like G345. And if you look over here, this is GM's newer code series, 1 to 3631. So we've got a couple of different models listed for that code series, and some Chryslers and all sorts of different things. The biggest problem with taking this route is G345 falls into GM's new code series. It also falls into GM's old code series on a totally different blank with totally different cuts. So if someone wasn't quite positive of what they were doing and they picked this for a newer car, you could go ahead and cut that key and it wouldn't even fit in the lock. So we prefer you to use the vehicle section. It's the quickest and easiest way to get to the information you're looking for. Another section that we can use on the program, which right now is pretty easy to get to the right information, is Sidewinder codes. So again, any of the newer keys that are cut like this, internally, externally, our Honda keys, our newer General Motors keys, things like that, are Sidewinder keys. So if we click on Sidewinder codes, this is an index of all the Sidewinder key codes we have in the program. So the key that we just looked at, a while ago, our Fiat key. This is also used on some Chryslers. That's the DE code series. And so if we had that code tag, we could put, if we knew the key code for, say, a Jeep Renegade or something like that, we can go right into that series. Not every code series is listed in here. So again, we prefer that you use the vehicle section, but if you had a customer who was a GM dealer, GM really only has a couple of code series. They either start with a Z or a V, so if you wanted a quick and easy way to get to it, you could just come in here, highlight the V code series, click on Code to Cuts, click OK, and it'll bring the key up for you. It's just a little quicker way to get to it, but again, there is a chance you could run into a snag, so we prefer that you use the vehicle section. This is going to be a short video that covers the LaserKey Products Elite Code Machine and Duplicator. This is an all-in-one machine that will originate and duplicate both high security and edge cut keys. Included with the machine is a small laptop. Generic code key code software will be preloaded on that laptop. There is also LaserKey product software that is included, that where they have a touchscreen version of it as well as a regular desktop version. Almost everything a dealership would want to do is accessible from the generic code software program. There are certain machine functions and settings that can only be accessed through the LaserKey product software. Since we're familiar with generic code already, I am going to be performing all the functions through the generic code software. There is in the manual that comes with the machine, it does explain the LaserKey product software as well, but both programs basically do the same thing. The Elite has a plastic guard that covers the entire machine. If we look over here at the status indicator, right now there's no light above the shield. The machine will not operate unless the shield is down. So as you can see, when we lower the shield, our status indicator turns red. A little bit about the machine. It includes a little USB light that plugs in right up here. Then light up the workspace. The right side of the machine is used for high security key cutting. We've got a cutter bit, a tracer tip that comes down to trace keys, and then a four-sided vise. You'll see that the vise has A, B, and if we continue to rotate it, C and D, the software will tell you which side of the vise to use. There's also a built-in tip stop on the machine. That's different positions. You'll see 3, 2, 1. The software will tell you which tip stop to use. The other side of the machine is used for cutting edge cut keys. And same thing, we've got a four-sided vise here that can rotate when we loosen it up to different sides. Again, the software will tell you what the best side to use is. A shoulder and tip stop that's spring-loaded that flips up. And over here by the cutting wheel is a tracer tip for decoding keys. To start with, we're going to cut our Isuzu key. And so we would go into Vehicle, and this will be just a traditional edge cut key. Isuzu, N series. We know the model year of it. And we're going to enter our code, which is 80376. Being told to use jaw A, use the shoulder stop, and we're going to do this all on the left side of the machine. So once we load up our key, we'll just click cut key and the machine will come out and make those cuts. So to cut our key, we have the vise on side A. We're going to flip up the shoulder stop, slide the key in. We're going to gauge it on the shoulder again. The shoulder stop is hitting that 90-degree shoulder we talked about earlier. Tighten the key down. That spring back. Lower our shield. And on our software, we're going to click cut key. shield. Flip our key over. Lower the shield again. And click it. And our key cutting is complete. Let's use a Toyota key and show how the machine can decode a pre-cut key and then allow us to make a copy of it. So if we look on our screen, especially our Laser Key Products information over here, I've already entered in the make, model, and year of the car that I'm working on. We know that we have an edge cut key here. It's telling us to use jaw 2 on clamp B and the tip stop. So here's a little picture of it. So we want to be on the B side and use the tip stop. So the first thing we will do is rotate the vise to B. We will put up the tip stop, loosen the vise up, slide the key in, and tighten the key down. Now one thing the Elite will do is it'll touch off on an uncut part of the key so it knows how thick that key is, and then it will measure all of these cuts. So we're going to put out the tracer, put down the guide, the cover, and click trace key. The software does give us a little warning to make sure we extend the tracer. We've already done that. And once that is complete, the software is actually going to tell us what the key code number is for that particular key. So it says that key code 63114 appears to match this, the cuts detected. So whenever you do a trace, you should always get that type of response from the software, that it did find a key code number. If it doesn't find a key code number, there's probably something wrong with the key where it's just a little bit too worn to trace properly. But you should always get back a key code number, a valid key code number. And of course, if we wanted to make that key now, we would just do the same thing we did last time with our Isuzu key. Grab a key blank, slide the blank in, tighten it down. In this case, I'm going to tell the machine to cut the key, and I'm going to leave the tracer extended. So the machine tries to get going, and it's going to find out that you forgot to put the tracer away. Gives us a little error. We'll click through that, get our tracer out of the way, and now we'll go back to cutting the key. And we've done the same thing that this is similar to the Isuzu key. We would cut the other side and then we would have our key ready to go. Now we'll move on to the high security side of the machine. So this is the right side of the machine. Again, four-sided vise, built-in tip stops, and our tracer tip down if we need to copy a key. So on the software, I've already gone into the GM V code series. Based on your make and model, I know what the code series should be for this car, so we should be able to trace this key and get a code number and then make a working copy of that key. So over on the right here, it shows jaw side A, and it tells us down here to use tip stop 3 to gauge the key from. So here's our working key. I'm going to move my tip stop so I can only see the number 3 here. We're on jaw side A already. Make sure my vise is nice and clean. Hold my tip stop up. Slide the key in until it touches that. Tighten it up. Lower the tip stop. And lower my tracer. And the machine knows whether the tracer is down or not. If I told it to trace the key with the tracer up, it'll throw an error and tell us to put the tracer down. Anyway, our tracer is down, key's in place properly. We'll lower the shield and click trace key. And as expected, we see a code number V1374. And so now we can remove that key, put in a blank, and originate a key exactly like that. So our next step here would be to remove our key, raise the tracer tip, and again the machine, if we tried to cut a key, would tell us that there's an error because the tracer's down if we're trying to cut a key at that point. We're staying on tip stop 3. Insert our blank. And this is just a inexpensive mechanical key that we have here instead of cutting a transponder key. We've raised our tracer tip, for our shield, and click on cut key. I don't have one handy, but typically we would have a brush handy and clean all this off with a regular brush. Good habit to get into is always to slide the key in and out a few times, and that way any burrs or chips that are in the way would be pushed out of the vise by the key. We'll tighten this up, lower this again, click cut key. Take our key out, and we've got a perfectly cut key. Always a good idea to use a file just to go over the face of the key, remove any burrs so that when the customer gets it they don't wind up cutting themselves. Also give the tip of the key a little file and just touch any rough edges there. Again, this machine is called the Elite, so this would be the top of the Laser Key products line in terms of key machines. This is not a machine that Framon actually manufactures. We distribute for Laser Key products. Tech support is done through Laser Key Products tech support line. They are in Texas, and their tech support runs from 9 Central Time until 5 o'clock Central Time. This machine is a good choice for any type of car dealership today, as well as large truck dealerships and motorcycle dealerships. Keep in mind there are certain code series that will not be in the program because they have not been released by the manufacturer. If you have any questions when you're trying to sell a key machine like this to a dealership, if there's going to be code questions or problems, you can always email us, sales@framon.com, if you have any questions on that. This machine is called the Laser Key Products Xtreme-S. This machine came out just before the Elite did and was Laser Key Products' main code cutting and duplicating machine for about 5 years until the Elite came out. It has all the same functions as the Elite. It does cost a little bit less than what the Elite does, and there are a few differences, and I'll go over that here now. So in terms of software, the Xtreme operates off the same software that the Elite does. The right side of the machine where it says Jaw 1, this is your high security vise. Same thing, 1, 2, and 3 for tip stops. A couple of different settings here for this plate. If we need to change that to hold different keys, it might show a picture in your software of Jaw A or Jaw B. This is just a dovetail that slides in here. Need to open the vise up a little bit more to get that in. So if it shows Jaw A or Jaw B, we would just rotate this plate. One of the major differences between this machine and the Elite is this is the only cover for the machine right here. So it's not like the Elite does not have a full cover that keeps all of the chips in. So when this machine is used, it will broadcast chips a little bit more than what, obviously a lot more than what the Xtreme will. For high security key cutting, again, this is the standard what they call Jaw 1. If you looked up in the software, it would instruct you to use Jaw 1. If you're cutting a Volkswagen key, it would instruct you to use Jaw 3, and those keys go right in the center vise here. If you're tracing, the tracer snaps down from here for high security keys. This is the regular edge cut vise, and it has different sides, A, B, C, and D. This vise turns, obviously. Cutting wheel over here, and if we're tracing a regular edge cut key, here's our tracer right here. I'm not going to go through the operation of the machine. Everything is almost identical to the Elite. Again, this machine costs a little bit less money, does basically all the same things as what the Elite does. Both are available, and both would be good choices for any type of automotive dealership, cycle, large truck. The next key machine we will go over is the FRA 2001, also known as an auto code. The machine is shipped with software that you would load onto a laptop. The laptop is not included with this machine. Any Windows PC type laptop running Windows 8 or higher can be used. The software comes on a USB stick. Just insert it and activate it, and it's ready to connect to the machine. As you can see, the machine connects with a USB cable. There's an adapter for the COM cable, which actually connects to the back of the machine. This machine will code cut edge cut type keys. So it's only for edge type keys. Right now, Mazda, Nissan, and any of your large trucks still use edge type keys. So this is a valid choice for any of them that need to code cut keys. Once again, we will be using the generic code software with the machine, and if you need to make any changes, we can go into application setup. We have it on Framon automatic right here. There's also a setup screen that goes with this machine for changing the cutter, changing the vise, testing the communications port, anything like that. Out of the box, once you install the software on the computer, this should all be ready to go. I'm going to remove the vise from the machine just so we can discuss how to load keys into the machine a little bit easier. Most of our keys these days are tip-stopped keys. So as you can see, the machine, the vise on the left side has got a built-in tip stop. So in the case of this Toyota key that we're going to cut in a few seconds here, we would slide that key all the way to the tip until it stops and then tighten down the vise. One thing very important with the machine to note is that you cannot hold the key by the milling. So if we look here, we can see that the blade is all the way to the back of the vise. That's very important. What we can't do with the machine is hold it on a ledge like this, and you can see there's a little gap in there. That key's got to be all the way to the back of the vise. And again, with this type key, we're going to go to the tip. If we were back to our Isuzu key that we discussed before, we would go into the shoulder of the key. And again, we're just going to stop the shoulder of the key right against this edge of the vise. Older General Motors type keys and some old Chrysler keys that were single-sided might only have a top shoulder. If that's the case, you would flip this over and stop the key at that top shoulder. But again, most popular newer keys that we're going to be cutting are double-sided, have shoulders on both sides. So again, shoulder stop key here, tip stop key like this, and again, we just want to make sure the base of the key always touches the back channel of the vise. Very important. To show you how the machine operates, we're going to make a code cut of this particular key. I happen to know that the key code for this particular key is 63114. This is a Toyota key that Toyota used from the mid-80s, early 90s up until about 2006 or 2007 on a lot of vehicles when they switched to high security keys. First thing we would do is go into our generic code software, and as we've discussed before, we could go in here and enter a vehicle, year, make, and model. I happen to know this is a Toyota and I have a good idea what I'm looking for, so we're just going to punch in 63114. We'll go to this screen after we punch in 63114, highlight any of the Toyotas, click View Key Data, and here's a picture of what our key is going to look like. With the Framon machine, there's not a whole lot of different choices, basically only cut key and settings. So once we insert our key, we'll click Cut Key. And again, just going to come in from this direction, go all the way over to the tip stop. Get a little better picture of that. Go all the way over to the tip stop, right here, stopping it at the edge of the vise. Also very important, we want to make sure that the key doesn't load like this or like this. I'm exaggerating a bit, but we don't want to hold the key just by the head as we're sliding this in, or we're apt to get that up a little bit or down and it's not going to sit quite flat. We want to make sure this fits flat in the vise. And again, if we look right here, we're right to the back of the vise where we want to be. At that point, we're ready to go. Click Cut Key. And as we've discussed, this is a double-sided key, so the same cuts on both sides of the key. Flip it over. Click Cut Key again. Completed key. The machine does feature a stationary brush on the bottom of it. You want to use that to burr your key off. And our completed key.
Hi, I'm Anthony from Framon Manufacturing. Today I'm going to show you how to duplicate and code cut on the DC300 machine. And we're going to start by duplicating a key first. So first of all, we got the wide side and the narrow side. So all you do is loosen up the T-nuts a little bit, flip it around over to the wide side because we're cutting this key, and we're going to slide it in to the shoulder. Then we're going to take our cam. You always, for duplicating, you always want it on a number 1 depth. So we're going to slide this cam in and turn it to a number 1. Now we're ready to duplicate this key. So, which is code 80376, and we're going to slide the key into the shoulder, lock it down, and we're ready to cut the key. Go over it, make sure you got all your cuts there. Turn the machine off. Flip the key over. And do the other side. Take the key out. Try it in our cylinder.
Hello, Jonathan.
Works perfect.
Calling in regards to the house repeat from yesterday. Give me a call back so we can schedule something to get time today. 354-8460. Thanks. Bye.
Next, we're going to code cut a key. So we take our space key, which is 131A. Space keys always slide all the way into the tip. Slide that in the vise. Next, we're going to take our key blank. And if key blank has shoulders, you always go to the shoulders. If it doesn't have shoulders, slide it into the tip stop. And we're ready to code cut a key. So I got my code right here with all the cuts on it. I'm going to start with a 3. Next is a 2. Followed by a 2. 3. 4. 3. Flip our key over, put it into the shoulder, and start. Test our key.